This is one of the rarest Toyotas in the world. And in this video, I want to finish the engine swap that we started previously, and I want to try and get the car driving. 3 weeks ago, I bought this car. It's called a Toyota Sera, and it has one of the coolest features of any car I've ever bought. And that is these doors. The Sera was only ever made in Japan, and it's renowned for having a lot of glass, but mostly for having the doors that actually inspired the McLaren F1. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you'll know that I've been modifying, painting, and engine swapping cars with just one goal: to make performance models of cars that never had one. For example, the Honda Jazz never had a performance version, so we took this completely standard car and created the Jazz Type R. And more recently, we did it again with this completely standard Volkswagen Fox, creating the Fox GTI. So with the plan to do the exact same thing with our new Toyota Sera, in the previous video we managed to install a 4E FTE engine, which is a notorious performance engine that came standard in the Toyota Glanzers, an angry hot hatch of the 1990s. And not only did we get this engine mounted in, but we also got it started. What the heck? But we still have a long way to go before we can get our Toyota Sera driving and on the roads. So let's get started.
Oh dear. That is really not ideal.
First things first, we have to address something which I didn't even mention in the previous video, and that is thermostats. I have had to actually buy a new one for reasons I will explain, and buying all these car parts can actually get quite expensive, which is why Revolut can really help. But I will tell you about that later. For now, why did I even need a new one? The reason is, neither of these two thermostats are compatible with our new setup. This is the thermostat that came off the old engine. This has 1, 2, 3 plugs. This one, which is off our 4E FTE, the engine that's in the car at the minute, only has 1, 2 plugs, and the plugs are different. So we can't use the 4E FTE one, but we also can't use the 5E FHE one because our 4E one, as you can see, has these two really important coolant lines that go to cool down our turbo. And of course, because the 5E FHE engine was naturally aspirated, it doesn't have those two coolant lines. So we can't use this one because it doesn't have enough coolant lines, and we can't use this one because it doesn't have enough plugs, and the plugs are wrong. So I have had to buy this one, which has 3 plugs. It has all the plugs we need, and it has our 2 coolant lines for the turbo. So this one should work. So the first thing to do to get our new thermostat housing installed is to scrape off all of that old residual sealant. And doing this will make sure that we have a proper watertight seal when we come to fit the new one. Next, I can go ahead and apply sealant to the mating surface of that new thermostat housing. And then I can get it fitted. To finish, I could plug in all of the electrical connections and connect up all of the coolant lines. Next up, we have this. This is our tiny little baby downpipe. This engine didn't come with a downpipe, so I needed to buy this off eBay, and it should sit on our turbo, kind of like that. We will obviously have to put our gasket on in the middle, and also it comes with the lambda sensor, so we can just get that plugged in as well. So let's get this fitted. Right, so that is our downpipe fitted onto the car. Now we can move on to a quick service. I want to make sure this engine is nice and healthy as possible for that first drive. Now I would usually do this service at the end, but the oil filter is in a very weird place, so it's easier to do it now. So we're going to drop the oil and also replace our spark plugs. Let's do it. So I could start the service by undoing the oil drain plug and draining out all of the old oil. Of course, the next thing to do is to remove the oil filter. And then, of course, our fresh new filter could be fitted. After filling up the engine with 3 litres of fresh new oil, I could then move on to the spark plugs. And the old spark plugs were looking a little bit worn, so it's a good job that we're replacing them. The last part of the service is to fill up the gearbox oil, because if you remember in the previous video we had to remove the gearbox oil in order to take out the drive shafts, but now to fill the gearbox oil back up we have to put the drive shafts back in first, so I could go ahead and do that. And whilst I was at it I also did up the lower ball joints. So once both of the drive shafts were in, I could then fill up the gearbox oil. And the gearbox needed around 2 litres of oil, but the best way to tell when you're finished filling it up is when oil just comes straight back out of the fill plug. So that is our service done. We are making some pretty good progress. We've got some fresh oil in the engine, our oil filter's been changed, we've got the spark plugs in, our gearbox oil has been topped up, and of course we have got our drive shafts in as well. But now that is all done, you might think we have some more work to do up at the top, which we do, but we're actually going to get the wheels back on the car because it needs to go on a recovery truck, because right now we are taking this car to go and get a very exciting modification. So I've brought the Sera here to the exhaust company, and of course we are here to get a fresh new custom exhaust system. Okay, so the plan for our exhaust is to basically connect up this rear section which we've got on the car to our downpipe which we fit on earlier in the video. Now the guys here at the exhaust company have pointed something out to me, and it is that this exhaust, our rear section, is very small in diameter, meaning that our exhaust gases aren't going to be able to travel through this very well, and there's going to be a lot of back pressure, meaning we're going to struggle to make the horsepower. But of course, the goal in this video is to just get the car driving, so I think all we're going to do is do an exhaust system which is good for a lot of horsepower from our downpipe up here to our mid and rear section, and then later on when we come to do a big horsepower video we will then replace this little mid and rear section with a bigger diameter mid and rear section. But for now we're just going to get the car running and driving and connect up this section of the exhaust with our downpipe. Now, building a custom exhaust takes a heck of a lot of experience and skill, and the guys here at the exhaust company are experts. So the first thing that Josh had to do was actually to remove the downpipe that we installed earlier, because he had to cut off the flange on the downpipe and replace this with a V-band. So once Josh had finished welding the V-band onto the downpipe, he could then get on with making the rest of the exhaust. Now, creating a custom exhaust takes a lot of measuring, cutting, stretching, and of course, welding. Also, just a quick reminder to smash that subscribe button if you haven't already, because it massively helps out the channel and will allow me to keep on bringing you these videos. So that is the exhaust for the Sera Made, or the front section, and as you can see it's been pretty easy to make because most of it is just one straight pipe. But now that is done, all we need to do is make some exhaust hangers and then we can go ahead and get this fitted. So Josh could firstly fit our new custom section onto the car for the final time, and then he could tackle the task of making some new exhaust hangers. The way he does this is by using a rod of stainless steel and this bendy machine to bend it into the right shape, and then he can go ahead and TIG weld it onto the exhaust. And once that was done, the exhaust was finished. We're back. Now that the Sera has got a beautiful new exhaust, we can move on to all of the other jobs that we need to do to get this car driving. And the first thing we're going to tackle is the ECU. So here we have our new ECU. This is for a 4EFTE, obviously, the engine which we've got in the Sera. If you remember in the previous video, we actually ran the engine for the first time on the wrong ECU and it actually started. But because the old engine and the new engine are so similar, it did actually work. But the only problem with the old ECU is that it did not understand the concept of turbochargers and boost. And of course, we have a turbocharger on this engine now, whereas the old engine didn't. So this ECU understands turbochargers and boosts. So this one will allow us to run the engine and the turbocharger and the setup that we've got at the minute. So let's get it fitted. So to start, I could work on removing the 5E FHE ECU, and this was a lot easier said than done. This is one of the most fiddly, annoying jobs I've done on this car so far.
Let's hold that now. It's out. I think if we undo these two, it will allow us to flex this a little bit, maybe. Yeah, just gives that bit of flex. Oh, I hated that. That's genuinely up there with one of the worst things I've ever removed.
100%.
That was awful.
We're a dead man.
Whoever designed that needs to go into prison.
Maximum
They
security
need
prison.
maximum prison sentence. They need jail time. That genuinely should be a crime.
Now, whilst the old ECU was very difficult to remove, the good news is that the new ECU is basically exactly the same. The plugs can just be plugged straight in, and we don't have to do any alterations at all, so it is nice and simple. So in terms of getting the new ECU installed, I firstly bolted up 2 out of the 3 mounting brackets.
Okay, so now he sits in there like that. I think those are the only 2 that we put in.
Yeah.
Because that would make it a lot easier to install, I think.
Definitely.
I could then go ahead and try to get the ECU mounted into place.
That actually wasn't that bad.
Once the ECU was mounted up, it was then just a case of getting all of the electrical connections plugged together. After that was done, I could then get our interior trim piece and our glove box fitted back on.
Okay, that's in.
Works pretty good.
I never want to do that again. But do you want to know the funny thing?
Go on.
We're going to have to do it again.
Why?
When we remap the car. Not today, luckily. But when we remap the car, that ECU's got to come out.
We'll be experienced.
Yeah, it's fair. We'll be experienced, but I'll also be experienced in depression too.
So now that our ECU is installed, we can move on to fitting on this new little sensor, and it is called a map sensor. It is essentially just responsible for telling the ECU how much airflow the engine's getting. Now the reason why we need to change this one over from our standard one, which sits here at the back of the engine bay, is because this one is for a 4EFTE, a turbocharged car. This one is obviously for our standard 5E FHE engine, and it doesn't understand turbochargers. So we're going to replace these over. Let's do it. So I could unplug our old map sensor and plug in our new 4EFTE one. Okay, so that is our new map sensor installed, and that should work with the new engine. But as I'm sure many of you know, doing this sort of thing and working on cars can be very expensive, and managing your money can be made that much easier with Revolut. And today, for a limited time offer, you can get a free £20 for just signing up and for using your card for the first time. Then you can use that £20 for whatever you fancy. For example, topping up your car, buying yourself lunch, or in my case, some engine coolant. Now, whether it's the engine in the Jazz Type R, the wheels on the Fox GTI, or replacing the glass on the Sera if it breaks, Revolut allows you to track these expenses with budget limits and spend alerts. Even better yet is Revolut's savings accounts. They offer amazing interest rates from up to 4% on the standard account and up to 5% on the Ultra account. There's no minimum deposit, no fixed term, and you can take your money out whenever you like. And on top of that, you can get interest paid out daily. And a little tip from me to help with your saving, doing is to use the spare change feature, which automatically rounds up expenses and adds this to your chosen savings pot. This means that you're saving without even realizing it. And trust me, this really does help. It is very nice to open that savings pot and see there's more in there than you expect. So don't miss out. Click the link in the description of this video to start your adventure with Revolut and claim your free £20 by using your card just once. Okay, so now all we need to do is fill up our coolant. We've got our AC condenser to go on the front, and then it is just a case of getting our headlights on, our front bumper, and also our wheel arch liners. But just as we were getting to the point where there was not much work left to do, something started leaking. Wait, why is it leaking from there? Why is it leaking from all of our coolant? We've done all of our coolant lines. We've got our top one, our bottom one. Both of our heater matrix pipes are already plugged in. That is very confusing. It was very strange because you wouldn't expect a coolant leak to come out of the bottom of the crank pulley. I really couldn't get my head around it. It was nowhere near the thermostat, which we had fit earlier, and the vast majority of our coolant lines were on the other side of the engine bay. So why it was leaking from this location was a complete mystery to me. That could be very bad, but let's fingers crossed it's not. That could be very bad.
Oh no.
Yeah, that could be really bad. That could be really bad. I'm not gonna lie, at this point I was pretty worried. I was thinking that I might even have to remove the whole engine and undo all of the work that we've done so far in this video just to get to the bottom of this water leak. Oh dear. Oh no. Well, you all can let me know in the comments if you've ever seen a coolant leak coming from the bottom of the crankshaft pulley, because it is definitely a first for me. So that evening, I had to just go home and do some research to try and find out what this issue was. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I think I have got to the bottom of this problem, and it's not the water pump, which is what I initially thought it was. It is this little guy right here. This is called a core plug, and they look like sort of beer bottle caps, and basically what these guys do is you tap them into the block and they are supposed to stop any coolant from leaking out. R1, I think, has failed, and the reason why I definitely think it is this over the water pump is that location of where it was leaking. These sit right above the crankshaft pulley, so it would make a lot of sense that one of these has gone. The bad news is that we've got to take off our alternator belt, we've got to take off our power steering pump and AC belt, and we've got to take off our timing belt cover and the timing belt, and then we can get to the location of this and tap it in. Now, that is practically impossible to do with the engine still in the car. In fact, I think it would take me even longer. So we do have to remove the engine. So I'm going to quickly do that, and then we can go from there. So 3, 2, 1. I suppose that is the benefit of working on old cars. That literally took me an hour and 20 minutes to take that engine out. But now we can try and get to the bottom of this leak. But, ladies and gentlemen, as I was taking off the top half of the timing belt cover, I saw something which completely shocked me. I have just spotted something which means this engine is gone. I don't think we're going to be able to use this. Let me show you what I've just found. So, after taking off that cover, you can see our core plug here and our core plug here. But look at the crack in the block just there. That is what is causing our leak. It is a huge crack in the block. That is not ideal. You can see it just there. I'll try and get it to focus, but yeah. Oh dearie me. Okay, so I don't think we're going to be able to use this engine. Oh. I've had bad luck with engines recently. I had that forged engine for the Fox that was kaput, and this one as well. Damn it. I actually don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. My luck is terrible. My luck is absolutely terrible. Okay.
I need to make a phone call.
Right, 3, 2, 1. So yes, this is engine number 2. It is another 4E FTE, and lucky for me, this engine I bought off a really, really nice guy, a very reputable guy in the Starlet and Glanzer scene. And obviously he didn't know about this damage, so he has just straight up replaced this engine for me. And it's a really nice one. It's got a reconditioned head, as you can see, it's all been redone. But now we do have the mammoth task of swapping all of the stuff from this engine onto this. That's like the exhaust manifold, the turbo, the inlet manifold, all of the belts, the gearbox, the clutch. And that's just beginning. There's loads of stuff we've got to do, so we better get started. So something I have done just to keep me organised is I have made a big list of all of the things that we need to swap over from our old engine onto our new one, and as you can see, it is a pretty big list. So I think we'll start with the spark plugs. So obviously our spark plugs in the old engine were our nice new ones, so I wanted to make sure that our new ones were in our new engine. So it was just a case of taking out our distributor leads and then getting the 16mm socket, undoing them and swapping them over. With the spark plug swapped over, I could also do the distributor and the leads. I could then tick these parts off my list. Next, I wanted to tackle the auxiliary belts and changing over the alternator as well. And to do this, I started off by loosening off the tensioner on the power steering and AC pump belt. And once it was loose enough, the belt could be taken off. And then I could go ahead and do the same thing on the alternator side, whilst also remembering to take off the alternator itself as well. Now, I of course wanted to retain my air conditioning, so I had to transfer over the AC pump too. I could then get all of this stuff fitted onto the new engine. I also fitted the top half of the timing belt cover from the old engine onto our new engine. And once that was done, the auxiliary belts could be fitted. One more thing to swap over was this knock sensor, which is on the new engine. We had to swap it over with this knock sensor on the old engine. And whilst I was at it, I could also swap over the rear heater matrix pipe as well. The oil pressure sensor that was originally on the standard engine also had to be swapped over too. Now, really annoyingly, I had to uninstall the thermostat which I had installed earlier on in the video off our old engine onto the new engine. And again, it is just the exact same process. So once the thermostat housing mating surface on the new engine was nice and clean, I could then get the sealant on our thermostat housing again for the second time in this video and install it onto our new engine. Now, at this point, it was all going pretty well, but I'm not even joking, my luck was about to get even worse. So the next thing I wanted to move on to was transferring the whole exhaust manifold and turbo setup from our old engine onto our new engine. And I did manage to remove this off the old engine without any dramas, but it was when I tried to install this onto our new engine that the unthinkable happened. The saying, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, I think is very appropriate here. In the grand scheme of things, this is quite funny, how awful this luck is, but let me show you what's just happened. So I was just tightening up all of the nuts for the exhaust manifold studs. 1, 2, 3, and 4. What can you see that's that's wrong there? So what's happened clearly is I'm tightening up this nut, and this, which had been previously repaired, I thought it had been welded, but quite clearly someone's just used super glue or something like that, and it's just pulled straight away from the head. And now that head is unusable. The only redeeming thing here is that we do have a good block with this engine, the second engine, and we have a good head with the first engine. So in theory, we could do a little switcheroo and put the block of the second engine with the head of the first engine. But then that is a lot of work. We've got to do a whole head gasket, which is obviously skimming the head, which is a whole process. We've got to order a head gasket kit, which will take a few days to arrive. And then we've also got to do the timing with all of that, making sure the engine is timed properly. That's a big job. So I don't see a way that we can get this Sera driving in this video unless I delay this video by another week. But I just don't think I can do that because I want to give you all content. So yeah, we've just had some rotten luck. We have just had some rotten luck. So I think I am going to have to leave the video here. So if you did go on to enjoy it, make sure to smash that like button. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And remember, you can claim your free £20 with Revolut by signing up with my link in the description of this video and using your card just once. So make sure to claim that £20. But yeah, I'm speechless. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.